So the first thing I want to ask everybody is does anyone object to being the subject of life logging? Are authorities looking for you, ex-spouses? I like to record a lot of my experiences, and this should be an interesting one. So I'm going to first set up my video recording.
People say yes.
Hmm?
I said, how often do people say yes?
Occasionally, but they usually say yes after they've been recorded for a while. They say yes in an unpleasant way. So I'm going to keep a little bit of focus in the digital realm, but I want to get into some biology, get into some really cutting-edge stuff that I know a lot of people are thinking about and talking about, including genomes, microbiomes, telomeres. Talk a little bit about life logs and mind files, which I'm sure you talk about a lot more than genomes, microbiomes, and telomeres. But I track all of these things. I'm not yet, I haven't yet accomplished some of the things that I want in the biology, but the reason I named my talk my Bio Life Bits and Backups is in tribute partly to Gordon Bell. I thought it was appropriate to give him a little tribute since he's a Microsoft researcher. He was a subject of the first real implementation of the Vannevar Bush MEMEX, but he also has gone beyond that, and he's also tracking some of his biology now. He's had his genome sequenced, and he's getting some of his blood biomarkers tracked. And so these are the primary biology markers and areas where I'm tracking. And then at the bottom, I'll get into the life logs and mind files a little bit. But why do I want to do this? I think is a question that most people want to know about why I want to go so deep, in, for example, genome sequencing. Why do I want my genome sequenced? Well, we've learned at the Personal Genome Project that it really is empowering for seeing into your own predispositions for monitoring and managing your health. The mind files, the life logging I do for memory augmentation, and all of it together I do for preservation of the essence of self, which we'll get into a little bit of a discussion about that afterwards, but who knows what that means until we actually have some way of using these data in a more meaningful way. But the genome, microbiome, and telomere data are right now in process, along with soon-to-be fMRI data, all being done through the Personal Genome Project at Harvard Medical School. And if you're unfamiliar with the Personal Genome Project, it's a project in which you share all of your data openly on the internet. You get your genome sequenced, you get your biomarkers done, you get your microbiome sequenced of both self and of your home. The microbiome project that focuses on self does several body sites: face, mouth, hands, gut. And you get a report at the end of the analysis of your microbiome that tells you what microbes are living on and in you. You also can do microbiome of your home. You can swab the inside and the outside of your home in different locations and find out what microbes are cohabitating with you. Most of you probably have heard about telomeres. Telomeres are the pieces of DNA at the end of your chromosomes. They shorten with time, with every cell division, and they are one of the best predictors of risk for a variety of different diseases. So I haven't gotten any of my data, the first three kinds of data, the fMRI, genome, or microbiome. Those have all been in process through the Personal Genome Project, but I have measured my telomeres several times. We don't have much time to go into that. I'll touch on it a little bit, but I just want to mention that We make a telomere test. My company makes a telomere test. We're currently crowdfunding on Indiegogo. You can find this there if you search TeloMe or Telomeres. But here is a typical plot that you get when you take a bunch of people's telomere data and you plot it against their age. The people in the lowest portion of the distribution, people with the shortest telomeres, are typically at much higher risk for a variety of different diseases and disorders. And it was recently published in the Journal of the American Medical Association that people as early as their 20s, if they have shorter telomeres than their peers, their age-matched, chronological age-matched peers, they are much more likely to get common cold and the severity of cold in the lowest decile of telomere length. So that's just a quick skim over the in-process biology, and I want to get into the life logs a little bit. I was a subject of a documentary film for life logging, so instead of me going deep into life logs, I just want to refer you to this film, Reconvergence, and here's a little bit of the life log footage that
There are two different options for technological solution to human mortality. One is the conquest of aging. I think that's extremely unlikely. It's certainly not going to happen.
This is the Harvard Museum of Natural History.
But then the other alternative is that we preserve essential
this is the Detroit Airport.
Of our identities, of our personalities, of information that resides in our
brains. This is me getting ready to go to the interview.
Maybe transfer it to a different kind of a substrate that isn't a biological brain.
Sometimes I log outward, sometimes I log myself.
You know, in building up to systems for the reanimation of the human mind, it's going to take a very, very long time for us to understand how brains work. It's going to take a long time for us to understand what kind of data we need. But we're in the data collection and storage phase right now. And the best sort of default position to take is to collect as much information as you can on people and situations that you think are valuable, that define the lives that you would like to have reconstructed or reanimated.
And here's the trailer for this film. It just came out of circulation on the indie film circuit.
People are interesting the way they assemble their own memory bank. People are in search of their roots. They need some sort of an identity with the past.
A meaningful consciousness cannot exist in a slice of time. We have this narrative about what our lives represent. We're starting to actually get into the functioning of the brain.
So I'm going to move on because we don't have much time. So you can find that film, Reconvergence, on reconvergencefilm.com. I want to talk about mind files now a little bit. What I'm going to do with all these data. What am I going to do with genome, microbiome, telomere data, life log data, other data that I collect in the same way that Gordon Bell collects his life bits data. So here's a new website, an interface for creating a digital avatar of oneself. It's called LifeNaut, lifenaut.com. And this is one of the pieces of the dashboard. You can upload photographs, videos. This is a report on personality surveys. There's a personality survey online with several hundred questions that you use to characterize what kind of personality you have. And it's very, very primitive right now. The avatar that's created, the profile of the person that's created it's very basic. It's like a first generation of digital computers, first generation of cell phones. It doesn't do much of what we want it to do, but it's a beginning of getting the data into a form where we can actually begin to shape it in a way that makes it do what we want it to do, make it more like what our true personalities are. So this is what I learned, and I've done life logging now for about 6 years. I'm getting deeper into my biology just in the last year and a half. I'm starting to get into LifeNaut and trying to make sense of all the data. And the bottom line lessons for me at this moment is that deep biology is now accessible to everyone. It's still relatively expensive. A genome sequence still costs several $1,000s, but through the Personal Genome Project, you can actually get your genome sequence for free. You can get all of the data that is being produced by the Personal Genome Project. You can get that done for free. You can get your telomeres done for free. You can get your microbiome of yourself and your home done for free. So the caveat is that you've got to share the information on the internet with the public so that researchers around the world can look at your data and try to make sense of it. And in combination with the data that are produced, the biochemical and genetic data, you are encouraged to do surveys, a variety of surveys for your health conditions and your mental health state. And so deep bio is now completely accessible. Memory and mind backups, they're sort of a mixed bag. Very, very rewarding for memory. I use them to, I go back to my life logs from several years ago. I find information that I never even realized it appeared on the life logs. It never even sunk into my memory the first time. But I also have forgotten a lot of important things that happened in some of those cases. And so when I go back with or without with friends sometimes, and we look at the time that we spent and the particular information that we might want to dig out of the life logs, sometimes it's really rewarding and surprising. But generally, using that information in the creation of a mind file or a reinstantiation or reanimation of a living person is very, very primitive. Very primitive, very time consuming, and there's no clear path to a restore point or restore technology. But it's like lots of primitive technologies where we start off, we have no idea how, what 10 years, 15, 20 years out in the future is going to look like. And I can only say about it that even though it's primitive, even though we don't know how we're going to assemble this into a meaningful whole, it's absolutely essential that we do. We're going to look back several years from now and think, if only I had those data, if I only had recorded those moments, that moment that was so meaningful to me, and you'll have forgotten many of the most meaningful moments. So, record.
Wonderful, thank you.
We have time for a few quick questions.
Is there anything from Ray Kurzweil's obsessive accumulation of stuff that would be useful in adding into this that anyone is aware of?
I don't know, but so Gordon Bell does a lot of what Ray does, except that Gordon actually scans everything. He actually digitizes everything. So Gordon's gotten closer, I think, than Ray does. Ray still has boxes full of stuff, not only from himself, but of his father. His goal is to reanimate his father. And, he has no recordings of his father, audiovisual recordings or other, more tangible evidence of how his father behaved. He's got some music that his father composed. So this is a case where Ray's major goal in life for reanimation is to get his father reanimated, and it's a incredibly difficult one to even understand.
Yes.
Yeah, how he's going to get from point A to point B without much of the data that you would need.
So are you adding extra long telomeres to your Red Bull every day? So, are you drinking your own sauce?
I don't. I actually have pretty average length telomeres.
So the point is you want them to grow.
Well,
Or stay the same. So I'm asking. Are you
at some point, they will get too short. I don't think they're too short right now, given the data that we have, and given how frequently I get ill. I don't think they're too short, but that probably is not too far away, and I'm having to think very seriously about what I'm going to do, because there are drugs, there are supplements that will lengthen my telomeres. But this is a double-edged sword, right? I mean, we don't know what lengthening of telomeres does, but we know that exceptionally long telomeres also predispose you to illness. So it's mama bear sort of range. You want to be in the middle range of telomere length, but we don't know. We need more data. We need a lot more data on with better assays. One of the things that got us into the business was to create a better assay, because the current assays that are available and have been used for most of the studies that have been published are not so great.
Last question.
What about the environmental component of the log? You talk about the avatar, you're interacting with things online. We talk a lot nowadays, there's a lot in the news about surveillance, about others as opposed to ourselves.
Right.
Where do you see that coming into your process result?
You mean drawing on
Your interactions, with Google and with people at work and
right.
strangers.
I've actually considered keystroke monitor, keystroke tracking, website tracking. I'm focused right now a lot more on biology, and it's taking up most of my time. I'd love to do it. That's one of the things that I want to highlight about getting deep either into to digital archiving or biological archiving. It's very time consuming, and so if I had more time or a bunch of followers who wanted to track me and track all of my computer usage and my social interactions, that would be fantastic. But I only have so much time to do that stuff. But one of the, that's one of the difficult things right now about all of these technologies. It requires a lot of thought, a lot of intervention, a lot of turning off and on of switches, a lot of sifting through data. It would be really great if we could create more seamless technologies that would, sort of turn off and on when we just sort of thought about the importance or unimportance of certain things.
Great, thank you.